I have seen a leader, and at chief level, that's where he sat. And really the what differentiated him was his high sense of accountability and ownership. And when I had a conversation with him and I asked him, you're leading your team quite strongly because they are in an e-commerce function. And he so there's a lot of change happening there.
Yes.
There's a lot of different thinking required there. And I felt that one of his strong points was accountability and ownership. And that for me sits within the growth mindset. And he said he actually dedicated himself into having a discipline towards a growth mindset.
Yes.
And so he invested in that growth. He read books, he went to courses in growth mindset, not e-commerce, as a leader. And then what he then does with his first sort of line of management, so those would be his managing executives and executives, he has a lot of mentorship conversations with them.
Yes.
Because the key thing about leadership development, it's a skill that is taught over time, and you have to change your thinking and how you see things for you to be able to lead appropriately. Because as a leader, sometimes you have a lot of blind spots, and as a leader, you rely a lot on your experience.
Yes.
The difference is in 2023, a lot of the experience that people had prior to 2020 has been nulled and voided. The landscape is a bit different. So you need to check in with people and say, hey, this should have worked if I had done it like this. This should have worked. But in 2023, the things that should have worked don't work because the landscape is changing and the people are changing so often. So for me, then what he does, he then has these conversations, and those conversations are cascaded, and he focuses the leadership development not just on skills, but how leaders think. And one of the key things that he really hones down is ownership and accountability at leader level, because when you own the leadership level, you are then able to take steps to make changes when changes are required.
Yes.
You don't wait for somebody else to sign off, obviously within the right boundaries, but you are able to lead appropriately for the right situations at the right time, and you are constantly having these mentorship conversations and coaching sessions with the rest of your team for you to be able to move forward. That's how I've seen it. And I mean, I'm saying this is not something that has a big budget. This is not something that requires fancy technology, but it is really an investment on the leaders and their minds. One of the investments that leadership needs to make is the ability to relearn what failure is. In a culture where we are taught that failing is not an option,
Yes.
it is difficult to think creatively and be innovative if you cannot fail. It is difficult to make decisions and be accountable on the decisions that you have made in an environment that what seemed feasible 2.5 days ago is no longer feasible today. But you had no way of knowing that it will not be feasible today, because the information is changing so rapidly that you execute on a decision, but the markets have changed.
Yes.
And you still need to continue. But if you are then crucified for that failure, then leaders won't move forward. But I think for me, that we already know. What we need to invest in terms of leadership development is how do we train leaders to have a healthy sense of acceptance for failure.
And in a culture that puts success, it's all the success stories are shared. You don't know what happened before that. I mean, you see all the successful business people, organizations, that's put out there and that's rewarded. But what about all those times that you didn't get it right? And sometimes, I mean, that's something that I take with me. Sometimes pain is one of the biggest teachers and learning moments, because you really become receptive to what did you do right, what didn't you do right, and how do you change that. And if things just go according to plan and you've never had that, or you've been, I guess, protected from that, it's going to be very challenging then to have acceptance with failure and learning from it.
Yes. Also, it makes it difficult for your team to fail. And be authentic with you to say, hey, listen, I tried this, it didn't work. I think let's try this. And you still have faith and trust and encouragement for them, and they go for it hard, and it keeps the engagement levels up. If you can't fail, that's also a signal to the team that they cannot fail. And if the team has failed, they will not tell you they've failed.
Yes.
And then it creates a culture of distrust and hiding things and lack of candor, because failure is not an option. And so for me, then that development, just a small development of being able to teach leaders a healthy amount, a healthy amount of that failure is okay, would be impactful in the organization on things like high level of engagement, because then people can show up authentically and say, I tried this, it didn't work, and let's try again, and still trust each other.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure there are people out there who definitely, with your insight and your experience and this great conversation, will reach out and we'll put your details. But thank you so much for your time and for this great conversation. I certainly got some food for thought.